Welcome back, everybody. Glad you could join me for episode 1 of Drumminstray Superior. Today we're just going to be picking out our basic drum kit. The bulk of our drum kit, that is. And that may sound like an easy step, and it's definitely going to be. So this episode, you may even want to skip if you've gotten this far before. So let's go ahead and start up our VSD instrument, which for this series will be Superior Drummer. Forgive the fact that I have metal machinery here. I have spent way too much money buying all their stuff, so we're going to start with just the basic kit for your own sakes. I imagine that most people aren't willing to shell out several hundreds of dollars just to have all the latest expansions like I used to be. Now, first off, listening to this kit, decent enough kit. I'm not the hugest fan of it, but you know, for the sake of this video, for the sake of simplicity in general, I'm going to make some adjustments and just get down to it. So making adjustments first will involve a little bit of tuning, a little bit of MIDI velocity adjustment, but it's just going to be generally, you know, this kit, maybe a couple of kit pieces swapped out, but even so, pretty much generally entirely what you'll be able to achieve with this out of the box. So let's get started here. You'll notice as well, I'll be switching between, you know, mousing the kit pieces and playing them on my keyboard here. If you don't have a MIDI controller, that's perfectly fine. You can get by perfectly with just mousing it in or programming a MIDI groove, but programming a MIDI groove is something that we'll also be doing later. So if you want to follow me along the first bit, then this will be something that anyone can follow around in just different ways. So let's start off with the kick drum here. Oops, there we go. So let's bring that. I remember this being much better at that velocity. Good. And I'm just gonna a bit more. Maybe just a tad more. And a little bit less. Let's give it that, and just settle on it. Alright, this snare drum here. It's pretty good, but let's take a look at the other options here. Kind of like that one the most so far. Of course, I'm listening on headphones as well, so any sort of tone bias that I'm experiencing that you're not liking, please forgive me in advance. Maybe a little bit late for me to say that, but hopefully everything is good. Let's just have all the toms just for the sake of me constantly having the most drums I can. Actually, that's starting to sound a bit weak now. That's actually totally not fair for me to be doing this. Let's quickly... I'm just gonna maybe try and adjust the velocity here for me to... Of course, this is all kind of advanced features of Superior Drummer that I'm going through in a breeze, so I apologize if I'm going a bit quickly, but... I promise I'll go over all of this quite soon. Nope. Let's do... Okay, that should be good for now, I hope. So, onward to... Let's do some... Definitely prefer that one so far. Okay, so I've noticed something about the toms. You can hear the rattle of the snare in the background there. So let's just, because we can cheat like this, just take all the bleed out. Maybe not the kick. That would probably be natural. Pretty good so far. So let's mess around a little bit with it. Just throw in some MIDI grooves. Now, thankfully for me, which you might not be as fortunate if you're using some different drum software, which most of these tips can apply to different drum software. If you're not as fortunate to have all these MIDI grooves and stuff, then program your own, which is something that we'll be going through again later. We'll be definitely going through together for, for realism, for, the best use of all your drums to make sure you're getting the most out of your kit, that kind of thing. We'll definitely be going over that later. For now, I'm just going to be using one of these, and I'll just take a good look through all these different grooves. So let's... Okay. Now I'm probably going to cheat again. Okay, so as you can tell, I'm going through the instruments and trying to reduce or increase their volume or general um, their general contribution to the overall drum mix, just with some volume and compression. Like the compressor, as you adjust the threshold, you can hear what it's doing. Especially if you solo the track, you can basically hear that it's just squishing down some of the higher peaks to make the lower, well, and as a result, when I'm doing the makeup gain right up there, I'm increasing the volume overall so that when, it hits slightly lighter, it sounds just like it would when normally it was hitting harder. And the harder hits are just going to sound a little bit squished down and fit along with the softer hits, which hopefully makes sense. Now let's listen to... Actually, and you hear I got a bit more click out of the kick drum that way too. So let's listen to some swing. Because why not? Let's listen to maybe this one. Okay, let's listen to Hats Closed here. I'm already clipping, so that's a bad sign. Let me just back this off a little bit. Yeah, I'm probably fine there. So far, so good. Honestly, the kit sounds really good as it is. So far we've pretty much grabbed all our correct instruments for our kit. I guess the only things I had to add was this middle tom and change this ride cymbal, and then I got everything good aside from choosing a different snare. So let me just play around with this for a second here. Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Now, just because that was so simple, I'm going to go ahead and do another one with a different expansion. So let's take a quick look through these. Actually, you know what? Just so I don't waste anybody's time, really, I'm just going to use Metal Machinery here. Now I'll show you my preset that I've used for the past while here. And I'll have to make sure that I activate all my outputs, which is just a matter of clicking on the VST instrument settings, activate outputs, and activate all, because there are, as you can see here, there is, okay, so all 6 of these channels are going to a single bus, which is going to an output. All 3 of these are going to another bus, going to an output. This is going to another one, just because I like having a little bit of extra control. If for some reason I decided that I wanted to have 5 plugins here, I could have another 5 way over here. Yeah, all the toms are going to another bus. So as you can see, I go pretty ham with the buses. Yeah, and then all the ambients are also going out to their own bus. Oh yeah, and then the triggers. So I'll probably end up going over triggers pretty quick. But with Superior Drummer in particular, they make it very, very easy to do. Excuse me. So basically, you pick out, your kick drum here. So for me, it's just this one. So that was my basic kick drum. Just from Metal Machinery, I went through and I chose just the basic one. Now I felt like it could have a bit more top end and maybe a little bit more sub bass, a little bit more boom in the bottom. if you get what I'm saying. And I decided on going with the X drum so that I wouldn't have to makeshift multiband compress anything like that, even though this really does count as makeshift multiband compression. But yeah, so you choose a new X drum from the top right here, and then it'll ask you, you know, what expansion do you want it from, or what kit. And you can choose the microphone assignment. So for this one in particular, all I was doing shows you on the right hand side here all the microphones that you are getting from the kit in particular that you're choosing to extend onto your basic kit. So because I chose the Rock Warehouse, I had like KD for kick drum and SD top, all these things. Those are all Rock Warehouse microphone channels. So I moved that one over here onto the new button. And yeah, so you can drag these from anywhere. And yeah, I dragged it onto the new button, and it created this, as you can see, the X1-KD. So that means it's an X drum. It's the first X drum that you'll be triggering, and it's a kick drum. I did the same thing with the snare, but this one was from just the New York Avatar, so the one that comes with Superior Drummer. So as you can tell, I'm still, you know, even as many expansions as I've purchased, I still use the elements of the basic kit to satisfy my needs. And as you can see here, you can choose between, you know, kicks, snare, hats, rack toms, etc. And then I chose, yeah, kick here so that I could choose actually the basic Rock Warehouse kick drum, which I can't pronounce. And New York Avatar, I chose a snare that would be the 13-inch GMS Piccolo. So yeah, now I've got all that done. I went into the mixer here and I take a look and I see, oh yeah, like I've created channels for the new kick drum trigger and the new snare drum trigger. And I added some processing, like I pretty much filtered out everything above and below a certain point, compressed it, like squashed it really, really bad, because I never really wanted it to add any less. Like the later I press this key, I didn't want this particular kick drum to decrease in volume. I could have easily achieved that with some MIDI velocity adjustments, like I did before with just the kick drum in the old kit. But the compression kind of adds to it anyway, so I decided that I wanted to stick with that one. And the EQ here, as you can see, big dip in the middle. So basically I didn't want anything to do with the mid-range of this kick drum. I really just wanted it to be bottom end, top end. So if I were to solo that, and then the snare drum, you can see I also compressed this pretty heavily, filtered out everything below a certain point, and you know, just off the top end as well, but also fairly resonant slopes as well. You can see that as I think this is the point right in the peak here where I decided I wanted to cut, and it actually boosts that particular frequency range just a little bit and then slopes off down the side after that. So that's pretty cool. You can just increase the, you know, you can bump a little bit more to compensate for the vast difference you'll be experiencing there. And then I EQ'd just a little notch out of the mid-range there because it was ringing a little bit much, and I didn't want the character of the snare to get in the way of hearing the bulk snare. So let's listen to that snare drum here. Yeah, so you can hear it's pretty squashed. Basically just a trash can at this point, but it's good. Now if I I didn't really do a good job of blending those together, but the way that I've been handling the snare drum is just cutting out anything that makes it sound like each is their own snare drum in the mix later. So when I'm working on a full arrangement or a full-length song or anything like that, I just bounce these all into their own channels, and then I mix from there. And that way I can still kind of make it feel like it's more well blended. So as you can see here, when I highlight the snare here, I do actually have this other purple note here. That's because I replaced one of the cymbal MIDI keys with the snare drum and the snare drum trigger. And another thing to note is that when I am in the mapping menu and I right click any of these instruments, you can see what articulations are used and which aren't. And yeah, if I highlight the snare, I can see, oh yeah, hit, or the kick drum here, I can see the hit. And then I would want to drag this on top of, C1, B1, B sharp, or C1, B0, B sharp 0, sorry. And then I would want to join that, but I've already done that, so there's no issue with the way it's set up right now. So hopefully that makes sense too. So let's listen to how this one sounds, maybe in the same groove we were listening to earlier. Quite fun. That one sounded a little bit obvious. Although it is a bass tom, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. So, with that said, I'm just going to go back to Metal Machinery, and we'll take a listen to the kit pieces, and maybe I'll try something new here. I really like how they double mic the kicks. Something tells me to use that. Okay. Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna want to decrease the master volume on this. Oh, that one's not too bad. It's not very... doesn't really have much character, though. Listen again to a couple more of these. Let's just give it a shot for now. I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm hearing some weird whistling in there. Just 'cause. Not bad so far. But yeah, I really should mention that the style of music that I'm usually acquainted with is metal, rock, prog rock, those kinds of things. So generally things where you would see these massive amounts of pieces. This is basically add to taste, adjust, and just mess around, like trial, error, experimentation. This is pretty much all about that, and you cannot get around it, not a chance. Okay. What's up, Lucy? If all you've been doing is following along and piece by piece recreating what I've been doing, you know, that's probably fine, but try and get your own feel for the instruments. If you know you don't like the snare drum that I chose, which I wouldn't blame you, I have headphones on, I can't tell what it sounds like in the speakers, then totally revamp this kit for your own purposes. If you don't have Metal Machinery SDX and you instead wanted to do something from Metal Foundry or Rock Warehouse, or even just the Avatar kit like we went over earlier, doesn't matter, just work with what you have. If you don't even have Superior Drummer, which I might do videos on other drum software I have later, but you know, for now, if you don't have this, then just find the equivalent in the drum software that you do have. So I hope that's been helpful, and yeah, I hope you'll join me for my next video when we talk about MIDI sequencing. So that'll be key drumming, step sequencing, mousing in notes, all that kind of stuff, and we'll be doing a couple of exercises actually that I've thought of to yeah, get a feel for all three and see which one suits your workflow the best. So which one will maximize your efficiency in creating a real feeling drum groove, or you know, just MIDI sequence in general. So yeah, join me next time, and thank you so much for watching.